All right. Well, I'd like to officially welcome everyone to Mindset Matters, goal-directed information strategies for 2024. Yes, we are in the new year. Happy New Year to everyone. We're at end of January, so I assume everyone's getting their 2024 groove on. Groove on. My name's Shelly Hayduck, and I'm co-hosting today's webinar with Matt Caton, our Director of Customer Solutions.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And we're really looking forward to this. I'm going to be sharing 4 specific features in the brain that are task hacks to help you stay focused and productive with all of your new plans in the new year, and therefore more likely to achieve your goals that you've set out. So we're really looking forward to sharing these features with you today.
Nice. And I'm going to go ahead and talk more kind of about the theory and the outcome-driven information networks that you can create. So we all know the brain is great for grabbing and jotting down ideas, aggregating all our stuff. But this particular session is going to focus on what we like to think about as a outcome-driven brain, which means all that cool information and the boundless thoughts and ideas that you have, they're always going to better you as an individual, enrich your life, make you smarter, make you go deeper. But one of the cool things about that too is you can harness all those thoughts and connections for a specific outcome, for a specific goal. And a lot of people, that have that all-encompassing brain database may not be aware of, hey, this is kind of cool. I can create a to-do list. I can use AI to generate a to-do list, or I can actually outline my steps and track my progress with like thought types and all these cool things that we'll get into, and really get more done in my brain. So we're going to cover that. I do want to let you know that we have an active Q&A, as I mentioned in our sort of preamble before we got started here. So if you have any questions, feel free to use our Q&A panel. We've got Juan on the Q&A. He's in silent mode, but he'll be chatting away, and we will reserve a good 15 minutes to even review some of the questions or cover. So feel free to, if we've gone too fast or you want to see something different, we're very happy to pivot and dynamically reconfigure just like the brain. But with that, I'm going to get started and go into my Mindset Matters brain. So the idea behind the brain as a visualization tool, in addition to showing you these related connections, has a lot to do with performance support. And that's why our seminar is entitled Mindset Matters, because you have to get into the zone to do things. I know a lot of my colleagues and people were talking like the first week of January, I think it's always the hardest because you just get out of like Christmas or whatever holiday you're celebrating mode. And oh, wow, like you had all these goals in your head and you plan things for year end, but then you're traveling, you're doing holidays. And now we're kind of in the nitty gritty of things. And we want to kind of, we specifically designed the webinar at this time just so we can look at kind of where we are at the start of the year, and wherever we are, we work from there with our goals and what I like to think of too as intentions. So with that, I'm going to click on a thought called goal-directed thinking. So the whole idea of an outcome-driven network is taking that goal or intention that you have in your life and breaking down the dream. So in essence, a goal without a plan is just a dream. So really helping you define success as action items and thoughts in your brain. So I have a thought here for defining success. So maybe if it's increasing sales for your business, this is where you want to get your target metrics. If it's a renovation for a house, what is the end result that you want? Do you want your house to just look like the way it was, but all fixed up? Do you want to modernize it? What is that new product going to look like at the end of Q1 or Q2 of this year? So that's where this area comes in, defining success. And defining success is kind of cool because you can actually drag and drop all kinds of supporting documents and inspirations. So this is a great section for designers. If you're looking at trends, new screenshots of other products that you like as a product designer. And that's where we also want to talk a little bit about infofusion. So in addition to having that goal, we want to have the right information coming into play at every step of your goal process. So at this step, when you're defining your success and you know, on a personal level, it could be just health, longevity, things like that. This is where maybe you put some mentors. Maybe you're interested in what Peter Attia is talking about, you know, in terms of reaching your optimal goal for, you know, your biking or that kind of thing. So defining success is the first way we reach it. So that's one area I like to make sure I have in my brain. And then the second one, although it sounds negative, is very important because obviously goals don't just magically happen or we'd have achieved them already. So number two is obstacles. So obstacles can be external, they can be within. It can be overcoming your own confidence. And then part of that, of course, is getting into the zone with your brain. But they can be real business objectives that you need to get done before you can move further. So if you're like a new startup company, or maybe you're just in a department who needs a bit more funding, it could be securing funding. So you could create a thought on securing funding, and then maybe you're going to do some research on, for instance, the VC, and I'm just going to put this in so you can see community. And from there, you know, you can add a document or you can actively start working on what you want to do. You can take a note on which VCs I'm targeting. I can link to, you know, some really cool podcasts, all of that in securing funding. So all the information starts to go around that, and you build that game plan in your brain based on that obstacle. And of course, there can be multiple obstacles. And then that's just another area too. You've got success and you've got obstacles. So they're kind of balancing each other out visually. And you can look at that and really triangulate your plan in your brain. And then, of course, number step, project planning. And this is where we can get into all those wonderful productivity gurus. I personally love David Allen's GTD model. I know that some of you mentioned that in your survey of seeing that. So we'll cover a little bit of that. Or it can just be any type of project model where you're visualizing each phase of a development cycle, for instance, in software and so forth. And I'll show you a little bit about that. But this is where you'd want to have action items. And action items are interesting because they can be thought tags, types, or they can be bullets as notes. And we can visualize, as I mentioned, project models. The GTD, which is the Getting Things Done Natural Planning model, is kind of similar to what I'm talking about as far as breaking down the dream, where David Allen talks about defining your purpose, your mission, and then a brainstorming session, which I absolutely love for the brain. Like, how do we get there? So brainstorming, I like to actually do that collaboratively with my team. And of course, there's you know, in terms of brainstorming to meet your goals, there's all kinds of things. Of course, Alex Osborne brainstorming rules is kind of like he's the father of brainstorming, if you will. And if you do want to do some brainstorming in the David Allen mode, or just in general, these are kind of some thoughts to help you get started and to really, this is the formal way of doing brainstorming. There's no right or wrong way to do it. But the main thing to brainstorm to achieve your goal or intention is to really focus on quality. So that sounds interesting. So in this case, you're not necessarily going to analyze every idea that your coworker or your own, you know, subconscious puts in your brain. You're actually going to want to just get a bunch of stuff in there. And that leads to step number two, which is withholding criticism. You just want to think of some cool ways to do what you're thinking to meet your goal. They may not be realistic. Like maybe you're going to go for a top tier venture capital fund and, you know, direct message this guy on the X platform. You probably won't reach this person, but hey, you're going to put that in because you never know, it might happen, you know, things like that. So you're going to withhold criticism, welcome unusual ideas. And then this is when can get interesting with the links. You can combine and improve ideas, again, taking you beyond kind of your success, your obstacles, to actually brainstorming, to getting closer to where you want to be. And so I'm just going to go back to this model as well. Organizing. Well, I think, in the brain, we've got that covered. You're going to bring in all those wonderful documents, files. If you are working in, the corporate environment and you've got stuff on like your SharePoint portal or other intranet sites, you can drag and drop those URLs, get it all in under the right step. And that speaks to the info fusion, where when I am thinking about my goal, when I am thinking about my obstacle, the information is right there. It's laid out, and that's keeping you in that mindset to see the end in sight and not get bogged down on the day-to-day little details, but to really keep you in the mode of getting things done. And then, of course, David Allen likes to talk about next actions, where you go from there. So that's kind of one methodology in terms of David Allen's GTD. I can show you a little bit more about that in an example brain that's a little more filled out. The other model for goal setting and outcome-driven networks that we like as thought types that I know Matt can get into and show you is the Eisenhower urgency matrix. Stephen Covey also popularized this as well. And what's happening today is we have so many commitments and so much stuff coming at it. The idea behind the second brain, or the external brain, as David Allen likes to call it, is to get it all out of your head and into a trusted system where you don't have to feel like you have to remember anything. At least you're going to offload all that into your brain. So my commitments may range from picking a new charter school for my daughter next year to a trip to, launching a new marketing strategy. Like, they're all over the place. And of course, maybe reducing my blood sugar while I'm at it too, right? So there's a lot going around in everyone's head. So the first step is just literally creating thoughts for all these things, doing what I like to refer to as a brain dump. And then you can organize them under thoughts, or you can actually create thought types. And another way of looking at these things is what's urgent, what's not urgent, what's important. And really what you're going to do, you might say, if you want to play devil's advocate, why would you do that? I kind of know what's important. Like, if I don't get the best school for my kid, blah, blah, blah. Like, but it's not quite as simple as that, because you will actually become explicitly conscious of things that might be subtly and subconsciously holding you back from that goal and intention by actually putting it in your brain. So this is another way of becoming explicitly conscious. And I actually, when we do this sometimes with clients, more on a corporate level, and they get in all their to-dos and projects, sometimes people are actually blown away. It's like, wow, I didn't know I had that much. And that then it becomes an interesting exercise in prioritization, and what David Allen likes to talk about as delegation as well. So do it, defer it, or just get it done. And he actually has the 2-minute rule. So every morning, if there's something that I can just get done in 2 minutes or less, I'll do it. If it's something that isn't important and I can't, I'm going to defer it, or I can also delegate it. And that's where you can actually connect your thoughts to other people in your brain. And I'll go ahead and jump out of this brain. I don't think, let me see, I think I covered everything, and show you the examples. Just a little bit more. We talked a little bit about breaking down the dream and getting these ideas out of your head. And yeah, I think I've got it all. And see, this is where I actually can come in. Natural but diligent organization. So why I like the brain for this is because you can definitely do like a Microsoft project plan, and you might have your task management systems. And obviously, if you're like an engineer, you'll have like an asset management system and all this kind of stuff. But what the brain's going to give you is a more natural but diligent organizational structure that reflects your wet brain, your organic brain. And that's really important, because it's going to take that mental load off you when you're looking at all this stuff. It's going to move and shift to where you need to go when you're doing things. So just an example, I'm going to move more into a more populated brain. And I've called this brain my 2024 Strong Start. Obviously, it wasn't named that in 2023, but I've decided to, come in, 2024 and boom. And, if that gets old in a couple months, I might rename this Mindset Matters or, whatever. So this is my brain to kind of get me into the zone. I want a strong start on my year. I want a strong start on my day. So I'm actually starting off with this particular thought. And under this thought, I have different areas of my life or projects that are really kind of the main action items that I have. So I have my marketing campaign, I have personal projects that I might be working on, and I have writing projects. And then I can actually get into my area on my GTD methodology and kind of look at things in a way that actually makes sense. So if I want to go into my marketing campaign, now I can actually see everything that I need to do. So I've got my ad copy, I've got a link to a folder with my different ad designs. I can link to budgets. I have web pages for graphic designers. And there might be certain things that, Sarah is, of course, on my team and she's great. So I'm really not going to worry too much about ad copy. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and I might unlink this and just come in and have Sarah take care of that particular piece of item. So that goes away. And likewise, if I'm doing other projects, I can do the same thing. So let me just go into one more example here. Just going to move my window down. Okay, in my thinking nexus. And go to another example brain. So in this particular brain, this one's organized by business and personal. Now you might have one brain that actually has one area or one a project specific brain. But in this particular brain, I can actually go ahead and I'm going to click on all my active projects. And this is what David Allen refers to as the 10,000 foot current project zone. And I have various horizons of focus mapped out in this brain. This particular brain, the horizons of focus is based on David Allen's model where you've got runway. So runway is sort of just all your basic action items. Now, your runway thought could actually be notes and checklists, which I know Matt likes to do. We're going to show that. Or it could actually be thoughts, everything you have going for. And so this is where you might want to start organizing commitments. So you might have action items for the week or stuff you're waiting for. So maybe I'm waiting for a final document or a new employee start date. So even though I'm waiting for something, knowing that it's pending is helpful for me to organize my commitments and manage my time. So with GTD, you want to collect, you want to process, and you want to look at different things. So now the 50,000 foot view of goal is stuff that is going to come in a little bit later, higher up in life, like your philosophy, religious beliefs, your company mission. All that stuff is really important, and you want to get that into your brain. And then that's the David Allen way of looking at it. The other thing that you can do if you don't want to get into that level of methodology is you can just create a goal tracker. So all these different projects are sort of nested elsewhere in my brain, like opening up a new office in Asia. That's under operations, that's in my business expansion. So one of the nice things about the brain is I can have one thought effectively organized under multiple categories. But I created this new thought just so when I'm doing my specific weekly review or monthly review of my goals or intentions, I can come right here and hone in on really these 5 areas of my life that I've decided to go ahead and really improve and target for 2024. Of course, a lot of this is going to be my business goals. So you see that online advertising. I've got a link to all my information and under that whole advertising section here in my brain. And I've shut off a few thoughts. New product plans. There's a Word document I can launch to get that going. And the other thing that's a kind of interesting idea that some of you might want to think about as well is sometimes goals and New Year's resolutions sound very finite and in some cases unattainable. So what a lot of people are talking about now is rather than creating a goal, you can create an intention or practice. And an intention or practice is interesting because it's not necessarily a specific goal, but the intention could be just healthy living. So that's where you can come in and start mapping things out about your health, what you want to do. And in this case, I actually utilized AI to research stuff on human longevity. So in this case, obviously, everyone does have the goal of being healthy. So this year, I want to particularly focus on it for a variety of reasons. So in this particular area, I've actually used AI to generate some categories for me, and we'll show you how to do that. And one of the areas I actually love is it actually put in a section for me automatically on key antioxidants for diet and nutrition. And that's pretty important to me because I know that this particular antioxidant is great for like my eyes. And I'm not going to link, I'm just going to go ahead and put, and I'm going to actually link, well, sure, why not? I'll go ahead and link to my eye twitching incident. So there's certain vitamins that will help me manage my health conditions. So now I can go ahead and sort of kind of take my knowledge and start recontextualizing it to what it's related to, and also even create some recipes in my kitchen area too, that like, okay, well, I'm going to start to integrate a bit more collard greens in dinner. Yellow corn, which I didn't really know, which I actually love, also has this antioxidant. So, and lutein is another one that is also great for eyes. So you can just come in here and make these connections if you want to. And, and there's all kinds of stuff I have in here. So I can go ahead and I'm going to connect that. And this is going to grow and it's going to become powerful. So if I'm looking at any of my health issues, I've got that right here as well. And in this particular section, I also have popular experts. So let's see here. Let me go into medical practitioners. There's a few different people that I like to follow online. So I've got links to their Twitter feeds and podcasts that I do. We mentioned Peter Attia and then some counterpoints too. There's a section here on technology innovations for human longevity. Dr. Peter Attia is actually taking a counterpoint to that. So I like to kind of think about these things as I set my intentions. So you can see how the information is going to inform the goal or intention and enrich that process in your brain. And I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass presenter over to you, Matt, so you can get a little bit more into the nitty gritty of utilizing AI to create maybe a note or these thoughts and the notes portion for checklists and so forth.
And I am going to start with sharing my own personal brain. This is my
Ooh.
real brain that I use on a daily basis. And there's a very specific reason why I'm starting with this brain today. As I
And you know what,
mentioned,
Matt? Can I just say I
yeah.
love your background, and that
Oh,
is
thank
one of
you.
the things that popped up in Q&A, and I didn't get a chance to because we are talking about mindset matters. So even
Absolutely,
though we're getting
absolutely.
into thoughts, a lot of this is just psychological, and I love your background. So that was one other thing that I was going to bring up. You know, if you have an older brain, you might want to consider like refreshing it with a nice Zen background, or if you want the wave of change coming in. You can see Matt has a wave. That is also a nice way in terms of information visualization. So again, instead of looking at a pile of folders, you've got the visualization of your thought, you've got a beautiful background there, and you're getting in the zone. So anyway,
Absolutely. And as you
it
can
looks
see, I'm
great.
sort of just jumping in and out of a couple of different themes that I have.
Nice.
And if that's what you need for a fresh start of the new year to get
Mm-hmm.
into the right mindset, by absolutely go ahead and play around with those themes. You can upload your own. If I go into options, I can upload and select my own wallpaper. This is a photograph that I took. So it's sort
Oh,
of my
nice.
default theme here for this particular brain. Absolutely, very relevant. And as I mentioned, I am going to have 4 specific features that I am highlighting that are task hacks. And it's not really a hack, it's a feature that's been in the brain all along, but are you using it? Are you taking advantage of it or using it properly? I want to share with you some of these features that really help me stay focused and on target for projects that I'm working on. And the first one, the reason why I started out here in my own brain. So task hack number one are backlinks and unlinked mentions. And let me show you exactly what those are. If I go in to create a note on a thought, let's say I really want to hold myself accountable. As Shelley mentioned, getting your information, your data into a trusted source. The brain can be that trusted source. If I've got some New Year's goals that I'm keeping track of, I want to check in on myself and make sure that I'm staying focused and on target. So right here on my home thought, my starting thought, me in my brain, I'm going to say my 2024 goals quite simply, and I'll check them off or I'll just make a list. Goal number one, sort of just a person. These are all personal goals of mine because this is my personal brain. I'm going to update the suspension uh, on my Honda Pilot. Great. Step number two, or goal number two, is to get the Asa Tori, that's the name of a boat I'm working on, in the water. And step number three is to plan my Grand Canyon trip. Okay, three goals, personal goals of mine that I want to achieve and get done this year. But you're already looking at the feature that I want to share and highlight with you. Notice that as I was typing, many of these words are actually being underlined in blue. If it was a misspelling, that would be in my color setup, would be underlined in red. These are underlined in blue, and that's telling me that I have a reference to that information elsewhere in this brain. Now, this is a feature that's really going to pay off for you in the future as your brain continues to grow and evolve. I've been using the brain since the brain 1.0. So I've got a lot of information in this brain, and now it's suddenly becoming more and more useful because of this feature. I don't need to relearn what I already know. So I haven't been to the Grand Canyon in close to 20 years. My family has never been there. We've always talked about it. We want to go to the Grand Canyon. I can right click on this thought and I can either activate the thought or insert a link, create a permanent link back to this thought. I'm just going to activate it and go to my Grand Canyon thought. So this is a thought that I actually created years ago. I've already linked it, as you can see, under 2024 vacation because it's something that my family has started to think about. But I've mapped out places to stay. And again, I didn't just recently add this. This is a thought created long, long ago. I've got just my own personal information on Grand Canyon reservations, the national park, tourism, and so forth. There's hikes that I like. I'm not going to remember the name of the South Kaibab Trail or where it is, where you pick it up. The Bright Angel Trail, I actually have checklists for myself for what to bring along on when I'm hiking the Bright Angel Trail, my own maps, and so forth. So all of this information, I put information into my brain as I'm planning it out, as I'm thinking about it, when I'm in a meeting, whatever the case may be, information is always going into my digital brain, and my digital brain never forgets. And that's what makes this feature so incredibly valuable. All of this older information is now becoming to the forefront. It's useful again because of these backlinks and mentions. And again, as your brain grows and evolves, you'll find this feature more and more useful, but it really helps you, once again, just to drive the thought home, helps you so that you never have to relearn existing data, existing information in your brain. And therefore, you can spend more time actually being productive and moving forward with a project rather than re-researching what you already know or what you've already done. Once again, the suspension in my Honda Pilot, if I click on this thought, let's navigate there. I'll activate that thought. And there's the suspension thought that it was pointing to as well. This is all the information about my Honda Pilot. It's an older car that I'm keeping alive. It's been a little, I'm overdue a few years to rebuild the suspension, but again, I've done the research in the past. I've priced out parts, how much they're going to be, can load that up and loads right up in Amazon for that example. I've got videos that I can watch, files, documents, even pictures of, where things are, whatever information that I need on my truck, on my Honda. I bring that right there into the brain. So I can pick right up where I left off and move on with that particular project. So that's feature number one, backlinks and mentions. Feature number two, I'm going to jump back to my Grand Canyon trip and I'm going to share. And Shelly actually already mentioned this. It is a feature that I really love, checklists in the brain. And I love checklists for many different reasons. And here's one of them. So this is feature number two, your task hack that's going to keep you focused. What am I going to be doing in my Grand Canyon vacation in this example? Yes, I've linked it to a thought 2024. There's a lot that needs to happen. I need to, and I like to create checklists by hitting dash and a space. That starts a new checklist, or you can use the toolbar up above, and checklist is the button right here next to a bulleted list and an ordered list. You can create a checklist. So in no particular order, I need to figure out the dates. I need to do logistics. Do I fly into, and I'm going to hit a tab. Do I fly into Denver where I have some family, or Vegas, which is closer? Rental car, question mark, and I'll shift tab to move that back over. So I just like to keep it, sort of ordered. Great. I'll stop right there. There's a lot that's going to go into this. And obviously, as time goes on, I'll figure out the dates. I'll make a note of that. And I simply check that off the list. Great. A nice, easy way to look at a project, a thought that you have, and stay focused. What's done, what's not done. Maybe you can use Shelley's a theory of, you wake up in the morning, hey, is there something on this checklist that I have for a project that I can get done in 2 minutes? I'll get it done and I'll move on and start my day off with a bang. Maybe that's how you want to approach these. But most specifically, in a large brain, as your brain grows and evolves, and suddenly you have two projects you're working on, 3, 10, we all live busy lives. I can go to a brain where projects may be peppered throughout my brain. And this is a great example because they are. I can open up my reports and go directly to my to-do list. Now, this is a feature of a pro license user of TheBrain. So it's a little bit more of an advanced feature. But as you can see, I can find all the places in this particular brain where I have an incomplete task. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful way to put yourself on check and hold yourself accountable. Do you have everything done for project number one, project number two? You can see at the very top of the list, 207 to-dos pending. Those are individual unchecked boxes. So one thought, as you can see, my weekend checklist, that's what I'm going to be hopefully working on this weekend. I've got about 10 or 15 different things there. So they add up pretty quickly. But I can go direct. There's the boat that I mentioned, the Aussie Tory. So I can go directly to that thought. And you notice if I scroll down, I keep pictures and documentation. And down below, I've got my checklist, what I'm currently working on. So again, I can pick right up where I left off. My next step is called the cockpit combing. And then I need to decide on front and rear ports and so forth. And this checklist will grow as I move past these processes and add on more in the future. So that is task hack number two, the checklists. And task hack number three is on the screen right now. So this is my third task hack to keep you focused and on track. And they are link labels and sometimes even link direction. Notice the Aussie Tory. So it's just the name of a type of kayak that I'm building. Stands for morning bird. Actually, And as you can see down below, I have all my art assets, all of my resources, all of my notes, more photography and so forth. Everything that the brain is known for, information management, all the data that I need for this project is easily acceptable. But what thought should I go to next? What part along the process am I working on? I've got my checklist, but to help me along with that, where are my resources in this particular brain? And as you can see, there are two thoughts. And if I highlight them, you can clearly see up next is glassing the deck and building a sawhorse. I need to actually do both of those next. So it doesn't matter which one I take care of. But those are the next steps that I'm going to focus on. I may have a cluster of child thoughts down below, and the finding the right one to focus on next is important. And I often like to do that with these link labels. Now, to do that, let's go ahead and click on the link label between glassing the deck and the boat itself. Notice that when I click on it or double click on it, it opens up the link properties display. So I can remove this if I want. And of course, I can review all changes in my brain. This is my real brain. So I'm going to come back and fix this at a later date. Double click, and I can review that thought label. This is where you can set up a directional link. And a directional link is just a nice visual cue that you can use. Think of that in a project that you're working on. This person is responsible for this document. Or, this project needs these components. You can set up directions between your thoughts, and it's just a toggle button. Click once, click twice, click it a third time, and it goes back to the default. And you can color code links as well. So let's just bring that back to the default and the default line thickness. So many different options for you to play around with those links, and they just help to define the relationship between the two thoughts. Let's say the boat was all put together, but I still don't have the seat that I'm sitting in this kayak. That is going to be the next step, is building the custom seat. So I can just double click on that link. Now you can set up a link type that's a little bit more advanced if you want to create a link type between two thoughts that you're going to be using over and over again. That's a really, really valuable tool. Today, I'm really just focusing on highlighting a particular thought. It's this one, customizing the seat. That is going to be the next step. And I'll go ahead and color code that because I love my color coded links. I'll change the default thickness just so I'm using several of the different features. And I'll click that toggle once so I can clearly see up next, I'm either building that new sawhorse for this project or customizing the seat, building the custom seat. So in a thought that has lots of subcategories, lots of child thoughts down below, you can sort of highlight which feature that you're going to be focused on next with that those link labels and directional links within your brain. And that brings me to my fourth task hack that then merges into a few other features that we want to share with you today. And this one is quite simply thought types. I also like using thought types. I don't use a whole lot of them in my recreational brain, but in my business brains, I certainly utilize those thought types to help identify categories of that thoughts fall into, whether it's a process or just a stage in a project that I'm working on. And I'll show you what I mean. Shelly and I both happened to notice that there were a lot of biotech people from biotech companies and pharma that had joined today's call and asked some preliminary questions on the sign up. So I thought it might be interesting to jump into. This is a sample brain. This product doesn't exist. As you can see, this is a fictitious brain that is actually set up after a real client that we worked with, mapped out all of their company products, whether they are approved for FDA, non-approved, competitor products, competitive analysis, and so forth. So this is sort of a version of that brain with the names being changed to be just a very vanilla example of how a pharma brain can be set up. So under medications, I've got a new medication that my organization is working on called Vasidor. Now, Vasador is going to have all kinds of documents attached, the labels, instructions, the warning messages, all kinds of research and development, paperwork and meeting notes and art assets and so forth. A lot of information will be here over time. But in the end, this is currently non-FDA approved. There's my link label again for heart valve disease. And we want to make sure that Vasador is FDA approved. So we're going to start that process. And notice this is my list of thought types in this brain. Under FDA approval, I have sort of a nested structure. So this also leans itself towards creating a thought network within your brain of better understanding for your content. And as you can see, to get FDA approval, I've mapped out, we've got to go through step 1, 2, 3. There's some subcategories of 3, and then 4 and 5. Now, as you can see, my company has several different products, and we want to get all of them FDA approved for their purpose. So I'm going to have over time, many different thoughts in many different phases. And I need to go to that thought and really see and quickly understand what phase this project is in. So this is the example I'm using, but interpret that on your own end for whatever project you're using. I saw on the QA panel, someone talked about hiring. Hiring is a great example because there's so many phases. Phase 1, you're advertising. Phase 2, you're collecting all of the different resumes and valuable people resources that are coming your way. Step 3, you're starting to organize and grade each candidate and decide who the top 10 are. Then you're setting up appointments for interviews going through the due diligence of background checks and so forth. So all those different phases, and you want to be able to quickly look and see if a person fell out at phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, if a person is advanced to phase 4, and so forth. So it's a great visual tool. So step 1 for Vasador is I'm going to click to open up the thought properties display, and I am going to say this is in phase 1 of clinical testing. Now, with thought types, that by default, they will display in the Plex, but notice they have those rounded edges rather than a native thought that has a square edge on it. So that's telling me that this is the thought type. You can only have one thought type assigned to a thought. It's the predominant category that thought falls into. So this is phase 1, preclinical testing. Now, there may be many steps in preclinical testing. I don't know a lot about what goes into that. So I can just say, I'll create my checklist. For step 1, it has to do, go through phase 1, 2, and 3. Great. All of those get checked. And I know that this is ready to move on to phase 2. So once again, I click on the thought and I take it from phase 1 to phase 2. And at any time, I can go in and review all thoughts that are currently in phase 2 of my FDA approval process. And this particular thought will go through each step all along the way. And maybe even on the thought type itself, I would have descriptions of what needs to take place in order for us to be satisfied to move this on to phase 3, or what needs to happen if we want to move it back to phase 1. So information can be on the thought type itself. And furthermore, these can actually have icons associated with them. Then you get that nice visual cue in the brain. Oh, I can clearly see that this is in phase 2. So if I click on the thought type and modify the thought properties, I'll select a stock icon from our 2000 thought icon library, or 2000 image icon library. And let's just search for the number 2. I don't know if I have anything. No, I don't. But let's just say there's a clock associated. So anytime I see a product that my company is working on, it has this little clock associated with it, I know that that is in stage 2 of my FDA approval process. And once again, at any time, when everything gets completed, I can decide whether to move that into phase 3 or subcategory 3, 4, 5, etc. So all also to mention, worth mentioning, is that this is a really great feature for TeamBrain licensing. TeamBrain allows multiple people to collaborate in the same brain database, and someone else might complete steps of a process while you were on holiday or on vacation, or you left early on Friday, you come back Monday morning. Okay, where are we at? Oh my gosh, we've already advanced this onto, someone else has advanced this onto stage 4. Who has done that? Well, you can look at the thought history on any particular thought. So again, I go into the thought properties, look at the thought history. I'm the only one accessing this brain. So you can see I've set the thought type to stage 1, onto stage 2, and so forth. But there's accountability within the brain. Who's modified the thought? Who's modified the thought type? Who advanced it made that decision to advance it to stage 4, stage 5, and so on. And the other thing that I want to point out is how I got those nested categories that provides the thought network of a workflow or a process that you're working on. Let me just create a new thought type. Let's say there are 6 phases for FDA approval, and maybe our 6th phase is just after everything is FDA approved, you want to do 1 year of monitoring, just to make sure there doesn't need to be a recall or changes or anything like that. So 1 year monitor, I'm going to create that as a new thought type. 1 year review, I'll call it. Great. That is a new thought type, 1 year review. And if we look at our thought type list, there it is right at the top of the list, 1 year review. But I want to make sure that that shows up in this nested category. And it is the 6th step so that, again, if I'm in a team brain environment, everyone understands, where this falls in our process or our workflow, and everything appears nicely and is easily accessible as my thought type list or my thought tag list grows over time. So I'll rename this thought to phase 6. And I am going to make this a child thought of, maybe I really want this. There's going to be a phase 6A, B, C. So this is going to be a child thought of phase 5. So I'll do a search for phase 5. And there it is, phase 5, FDA review and approval. So I make that a child thought, and therefore it is now being nested in that category. And I look at my list. There it is. Phase 6 falls right under phase 5 in my FDA approval process. So whenever you're setting up those thought types or thought tags, if you want them to be nested and appear in that nice structure, go ahead and create the thought first, or the 2 thoughts first, and then make the connection between them, and it'll fall right into line in that hierarchy. And this brings me to my last component that we've all both talked about, both Shelly and I, the AI integration in the brain. Now, Shelly and I are both demoing in the Brain 14 today. You may have noticed. The differences are subtle, but there's a little AI button here in the Plex and an AI button here in the notes. And that AI integration exists in the Brain 14, which is currently in beta. If you want to download your own copy, install the Brain 14, you can do so at www.thebrain.com/thebrain14. And you can install the Brain 14, close 13, open 14. It'll launch the same Brain databases. It's very stable. We're running it with all of our beloved brains, my own Brain database. I run it in the Brain 14 every day. There's no going back for me for 13. The Brain 14 is great. And part of that, one of the features, just one that we're highlighting today, is the AI integration, because the AI integration can help give you that extra boost that you need on a project that you're working on a topic you're researching. You might look at this and think, wow, Matt really knows a lot about the process for FDA approval. I actually don't, but what I do know is that I can go to one of my thoughts. I'll just go back to this thought. And let's say I create a new thought called phases for FDA approval. So these are the different phases for FDA approval. Great, I've created that thought. I could go out on the web and start researching, and every time I find something, oh, this is important, you need to do this. I copy that information and bring it into my brain. That's going to take a lot of time. I just create the thought here in the brain. Now, with this AI button, I could create a thought structure. So subcategories. And if anyone is curious about that, we can definitely demo that today. In this example, I actually just want to create a note. So I'm going to come over to the content area and generate a new note. I'll give it about 750 words to tell me the phases for FDA approval. I'll say approval process. Let's find out. Generate note. And there you can see it's off. So I'm not typing anything. This is the brain. Oh, and it even did the phase 1, 2, and 3 under the subcategory that I mentioned in my structure. So it's already done. A month's worth of research is complete in just a few seconds. Now, this is a feature that I really, really like as well. You've just added information from AI into your brain database. Take a minute, review. Is that the content that you want? You can redo this. Maybe I need to reword my query. Maybe I want to change how many words in the response I want, or how creative it is. There's a creativity scale, 100% creative or 0% creative, just straight factual information. I stayed right in the middle, and I got this great overview of the process you need to go through for FDA approval. That sounds great. I'll go ahead and accept this, and that's a permanent change there in my brain. Not permanent, I can select it and delete it if I wanted to. But this is also a lot of information to go through. And if I want to refine this, I can go one step further. So there's some really, really valuable information here, obviously. But I'm in a hurry. I'm about to step in a meeting and I need to sound like I know what I'm talking about. I'm going to take this long note, wherever it came from. I had AI create this for me. Maybe you've been taking lecture hall meetings, and over the past couple of months, you've developed this incredibly long note on a project you're studying. You went into a meeting and just everyone unloaded. You've got a lot of data. You need to review it. I click on AI once again, and you can see that I can just summarize this entire note. I can rewrite it in a different style if I'm about ready to publish this online. In this case, I want to extract action items. What are the steps that I need to take to fulfill whatever this topic is? So I click on extract action items. And right there at the bottom of my note are all the individual components, what I need to do. And they're taking me through 1, 2, and 3 of clinical trials, and then a few more steps afterwards. And I've got just a nice checklist, an outline that I can follow to make sure that my product, I'll go ahead and accept that, is FDA approved. So rather than a 2 or 3 page note, I now have basically a paragraph broken down into all the components that I need to complete whatever this task is, or project is on this note. So that's a feature that I really, really like, and I think one that will help you as well. If you're collecting a lot of data, a lot of information on a topic, and just sort of dumping it into a note, you can have AI refine that note for you and give you actionable checklist items so that you can complete that process. And Shelly, with that, I think those 4 highlighted features that I wanted to share with you today. Did we get some any additional questions or anything that I may have missed?
We did, but I'm actually going to go ahead and grab presenter, and just somebody had asked about my David Allen section being
Mhm.
created through AI. So I'm going to actually show thought creation through AI
Oh, good.
on David Allen and Stephen
Sure.
Covey.
Sure.
So, and just to get into a couple questions on thought creation, I do want to mention, I just want to make sure, how do I grab, did I grab it?
I can send it to you, or you can click on the green button for
Okay,
share.
share
And as soon
screen.
as you start sharing your screen,
Yes. Okay,
it'll
let me go
take
ahead and
over
do
mine.
this real quick.
There you
And
go.
we are officially entering the Q&A, and then I'm going to send it back. I'm going to pass the ball back to Matt to go over reminders and imports and all kinds of stuff. Now, also, just to let everyone know, if you are still on 13, that is perfectly fine. You can actually go online and use the AI, but this particular brain is not the first brain I showed you, but this was all created. All these thoughts were created through AI, and it actually, I found a really cool section through AI called Focus and Concentration, where I just came in and I had it create different lists and ideas. For instance, I can continue to build this. So if I have a thought that I want to talk about enhancing concentration through brain boosting foods, I can just go up to AI in my brain and I can add more categories to kind of build this section more, or I can actually change it to list to have specific examples. And if I want to set the context of this, I can actually select that this is in the context of David Allen as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and create these thoughts. I like to generate child thoughts down. You can generate any kind of structure, but let me do this. So this is another way. And of course, Matt showed you the note. So this is interesting. So here's all our stuff we're getting on antioxidants. It looks like I spent a lot of time. It took me a couple minutes. I'm actually going to accept this because you don't have to. It looks pretty good. So you can see it talks about whole grains and their effect on focus, omega-3 fatty acids and concentration. So I've got some ideas for brain boosting foods for concentration. And I can continue to grow and evolve this. So for instance, if I want to go a little bit deeper, I can go ahead and use the AI tool again to learn a little bit more about this. I can actually add more categories to continue to flesh this out because there's really no limit to how deep you want to go with your thought structure in AI. But again, I'm just going to use list and generate that thought structure.
And the big difference between thought structure and generate thoughts, the bottom checklist option is just one layer deep. You just get child thoughts. Shelly checked the option, so she's got multiple tiers and subcategories to
Yes,
really break
and
things
list
down.
is an instance. So sometimes AI gives me like more categories of categories, like the sub antioxidant categories of omega-3, subcategories of concentration. So and that is right here. Let me just click on AI. It pulls up. Okay.
I think you can just navigate to another thought.
Yeah, I'll just go to
refresh.
different thoughts since this was created. But that's list. So list you can think of as specific examples. But what I thought was interesting, which is very relevant for today, is AI gave me some cool ideas on sensory diet and sensory environment for optimizing concentration. And so because we are talking about mindset matters and focus, and I'm happy to share this. I can't take credit for it because it was created with AI, but I thought this was really cool. Just how to optimize your sensory environment. You can do a sensory assessment and identify any of your distractions, creating a sensory friendly workplace, making a clutter-free zone for your environment, ergonomic furniture, different sensory zones. Sometimes you want a quiet zone to do things. Sometimes you actually like a little noise. Like when I'm doing something not so fun, like QuickBooks accounting, I actually like to turn on like CNN and the news because I'm not stimulated enough. So the sensory diet for mindset matters is quite interesting. Sensory focused technology is actually where we come in. I didn't actually create this category. Data visualization and mind mapping tools like TheBrain are actually recognized by GPT chat and all kinds of experts as sensory focused technology because they will impact your sensory environment, which is of course your concentration to get more done. So if any of you want to dive deeper into sensory environment optimization through concentration, specifically as it relates to David Allen, I'm happy to share or send you, or we can talk about that even in further tweets and webinars, but just wanted to show you that. So a couple of you had a few more questions on GTD. So we've got, obviously this is the example I curated and made, but the other brain here, this was all, pretty much 100% done with AI here. So just an example of how quick you can pivot on a topic utilizing AI. And then back to some other questions. Matt, I'm going to throw the ball back to you.
Okay.
And somebody had questions on creating reminders in your brain, thought
Oh, perfect.
reminders.
Yes. So reminders in the brain are just a great way to, again, get something out of your head and make the responsibility a trusted source and having the brain remind you about a particular project. I do have reminders in all of my brains, both my recreational brain and my business brain, and it's quite simple. So let's say what is today? Thursday. Every Thursday afternoon, I want to check in to see how our FDA research is going with this new project. So I am going to, there's a few different ways to set up reminders. Um, I'll try to share all of them with you, but you'll get the idea. So here I am on this thought faceter. Again, we're collecting data over time. I also want to attach to this thought an event. And the event is just a reminder to check in with the team. How's everything going? Where are the bottlenecks? What are we waiting on next? How can we, help move this forward? So I'm going to make the reminder back in time. I think if any eagle eyes were watching out there, I saw earlier when Shelly had a brain open, I think a brain reminder popped up on her screen.
Yes,
Um,
yes, it did.
so
So,
yeah, we set up reminders about
yeah,
like meet, this
because you'll
today's event
forget. So,
recording. Yeah.
hey,
So I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to make this back in time so you can see what it looks like. Wednesday the 17th is when at 3 p.m. is when I'm supposed to have a reminder to the description. I can put whatever I want here. Check in with team. So whatever needs to happen. This is just going to be a one-time reminder. But yes, the brain is going to remind me, and I can pick, one day prior to that event, 10 minutes prior, what have you. I'll say 30 minutes prior to 3 p.m., check in with the team. Um, and that's it. And it gets added as an attachment. And actually, before I can even talk a
nice.
little bit further, you can see my reminder is popping up. Check in with the team on Vassador. And if I wasn't on this thought, if I was on a different thought elsewhere in my brain, this pop-up would still pop up right in front of me as long as the brain is open. So it's not going to send you reminders for brains that are not open. We tested that and it became too intrusive. So as long as that brain is open, hey, there's a reminder in this brain to go to this faster thought. I can click to go directly to it. And that also opens up the timeline down below. So let's talk about the timeline. And let's snooze this for 5 minutes. So if I'm in this brain for another 5 minutes, you'll see that reminder pop up again. So you can set up reminders in the timeline too. You can open this through options, no, view, timeline. There it is. So you can get to your timeline there. There's also a button right next to the search, opens up the timeline. And you can scroll backwards and forwards through time. I'm in sort of the week view. So I see Wednesday through Wednesday here. I can go to sort of a month view and a yearly view as well. But I'll zoom in on today. And I'll click and drag. Let's say at 4 p.m., we're going to have a summary meeting. So from 4 to 6. So I click and drag on the timeline. It creates a new event. And we're going to, check in on our customers. Now, notice this is not associated with a thought. Just because you have something appearing in the timeline doesn't mean it needs to be linked to a thought somewhere in the brain. That's fine. But there is a
But you
context
can link to
menu.
a thought in
Yes,
timeline
so
if
I
you want
can
to as
attach
well.
it
So
exactly to the current active thought. So if I do want to link this to a customer's thought, I can navigate to the customer's thought and then link the thought with its event. So I'll go ahead and attach this. And you can see that there are 2 events associated with this thought. I can click up here to go directly to that item. I can review, click, open it up, make some changes, modifications. And this is the really great thing. And I think this is more pertinent to the question that came in. weekly reminders, scheduled reminders. All
Mhm.
right, I don't want to just see this last Wednesday, this one-time review. I want to make this a recurring, so it recurs how often? Once a month, once a week, twice a week, etc. So I can say daily for, but it expires after 15 days. So I'll say 15 days. It expires, and we'll set that up. And I'll have a daily reminder to, check in. And there you can see boom, 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 every day for 15 days. That check-in is appearing in my timeline down below. And now, as you can see, since I started it back on the 17th, I've missed quite a few. I've got a lot of work to do. And so I can click the X to, cancel those reminders, or click the snooze again to get another reminder in 5 minutes. So reminders are a great way, again, getting it out of your head into the brain, and let the brain do all the heavy lifting for you to remind you of those projects. And it's a great feature to utilize for achieving those goals, checking in with yourself and holding yourself accountable and setting up those reminders. I should have added that as my fifth highlighted feature.
Okay, nice. And just to let you know, we do have several questions that popped in the Q&A. We're going to go into a little bit, another 5 or 10 minutes to Q&A to cover those. For those of you that do need to leave on the hour, you will have the recording, but if you want to stay, you'll probably hear some very interesting and fun stuff because we're going into the Q&A. And Matt, I want to bring up a question that came in a little earlier in the session from Bill. I have reference brains that I'd like to reference specific thoughts from in other brains. Can
Oh,
you
yeah.
speak to connecting individual thoughts from one brain to another?
Absolutely. And actually, here's a great example of that. If I come back to let's go to my Matt Caton thought, and I've got my Grand Canyon. So I'm going to right click and activate Grand Canyon. I have another brain that I use. Let me move the Zoom panel out of the way. I've got another brain that I use that I happen to have open, called the Great Outdoors. This is a public brain. The other brain, Grand Canyon, or my Laura Bloom brain, that's my own personal recreational brain. So that's just my information about projects I'm working on. This is a brain that I actually made public, and it's I'm very interested in national parks, national grasslands, national forests, and I slowly check off the list. I hope to someday visit all these places in my lifetime.
Nice.
So you can see here are all of the national parks. I don't have a lot of personal information in this brain. I do have some, but not a lot. And if I scroll through the list, I'm sure we can find um, Grand Canyon. There it is. So I've got Grand Canyon appearing in two separate brains. What if I want to link between them? Because there's additional information in one that doesn't exist in the other. Or a lot of people set up sort of having a primary brain, and then they link to all these satellite brains. And
Mhm.
this is exactly how that's done. If from my primary brain, my recreational brain, I want to link into this public brain, I'm going to right click on Grand Canyon and select to copy the local thought URL. If you sync your brain to the cloud and make it publicly accessible for the whole world, you can also have a web thought URL that you could send friends to, so they can go directly to a thought in your brain online. In this case, I'm just jumping back and forth between the desktop app, thoughts in the desktop app. So I'll copy the local thought URL and jump over to my brain, right click, and paste the web link. And the brain follows a very specific rule structure, which is anytime you have an attachment, Word document, an Excel spreadsheet, a web page. Granted, web page is open in the content area, but if you click the open button, it'll launch in its native application. And that's the same thing here. I can even close this other brain tab. And when I launch, it follows those rules. It launches that attachment in its native application. The native application is the brain. So it's going to launch the brain and take me directly to the Grand Canyon thought in that other brain. So that's
All
the
right.
local thought URL that you can copy and paste between different brains.
And then we're covering kind of preserving that thought in the other brain structure,
Mhm.
but sort of a follow-up question Bill had, and a couple people were asking is, And he used the word, how do we graft one brain part or whole from another? But also just how to copy, mass select, and copy thoughts. So for instance,
Sure.
maybe I'll share my David Allen brain with you. Maybe you only want the part on sensory diet. So you can just, but you don't want to connect to my brain or things. So you can literally just copy, crawl that area, and paste from one brain to another as well, too.
That's
So
right. Yeah. And I can do that really quickly. I've got
yeah.
like all national parks and grasslands, everything that's in Arizona, quite a few. So I'm going to control click. If you're on a Mac, you would command click.
And you
And I
can
can,
also go up to the edit menu as
uh-huh.
well. And
Yes.
it's in that way too, to grab
Yes.
thoughts.
To select
Select
related
related
thoughts.
thoughts. Yeah.
And so that selects from the current active thought every child word or parent thought or jump thoughts in X number of generations. So many different ways to add content into your selection box. And also, if I see something I don't want, Pipe Springs National Monument. Nothing against it. I don't know exactly what that is, but I'll control click and remove that from my
Yeah.
list. So you can populate this list, and when you're happy with what you have, and this is a great example, like Shelly said, sometimes you've got a business colleague, hey, I'd like to know more about that. You don't want to send them your entire brain. Maybe it's got your customer research in there, or you've got personal finance or something like that. So you copy the section that you do want to share, feel comfortable sharing, or need to move from one brain to another. Copy that grouping of thoughts, right click. I'll copy those 27 thoughts, come back to my other brain and go to Arizona, where I can right click and paste those 27 thoughts. And there they are. And it brings
Nice.
with it all attached information, all web pages, all of the different
Thought
the
types and
notes,
tags.
thought types, tags. You can see Tonto National Forest is a national forest. There's the attachment and so forth. So all of that information brought from one brain into another.
All right, great. And then we had a question from Steve earlier about importing and exporting from Word and
Mm,
spreadsheets to create thoughts in your brain. So I'm not sure if you
yes.
have that or we want to just speak to that real quick. Either way.
Sure, I'll give you the quick example, and we do have some excellent examples of this process, both directly to Word, then directly to Excel, and so forth. In our knowledge base, if you go to our website, thebrain.com/support, there's a link to the Brain knowledge base. It's a brain about the brain. And you can do a search for Word or Excel and find videos of this process, step by step overview. But really quickly, let's say I wanted to get something into an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm going to use Shelly's example. I'm going to control click to add the Grand Canyon. And then I'm going to go up to edit and select related thoughts. So every child word thought for, we'll just say 3 generations deep, shouldn't be too much. 17 thoughts have now been added into my selection box. I simply right click and copy as a text outline. We'll do the text outline. I'm going to open up Notepad++, which is my favorite text editor. And let's get a new document. There we go. Nope, that's not right. There we go. Okay. And right click and paste. So this is how you would paste into Word. You get a nice outline of that structure, and it even follows. So under Grand Canyon, it had 4 child thoughts: the Grand Canyon National Park, places to stay, hikes, and info. Those had some child thoughts as well. So you can see they're all indented. And this is, I guess you'd call it reverse compatible. You can go into a Word document that's structured this way, copy it, and paste that
And that's
into
actually
your
what
brain.
Steve wanted to know, if you could go
Okay.
the other way, to actually import from Word and Excel. Now, you do have
Okay.
to format the Excel and the Word do need to be formatted a certain way.
That's right.
And it's a little bit beyond the scope of our webinar today, but I did want to let you know that you actually can do that, but you have to
Absolutely.
format. I don't know if we have a tutorial or something that we
Yeah,
could
they're
send.
all in that. And send a note to support at
Yeah,
thebrain.com.
I'll
We'll
have
send
Juan send
those links
something.
to you. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. But it's a tabbed interface, a tab delineated interface. This is
Hmm.
the structure you're
And
looking
those
for.
tabs the brain will recognize that. So just to answer your question, yes, you can import back into the brain and create the brain structure through Excel. We actually had a financial services company that I can't mention, but loved Excel. So they actually built their brain creating it through Excel and then importing it that way. I don't necessarily recommend that, especially with AI now and all that kind of thing, but you can do it. I also just wanted to share my thinking that the national parks section of your brain mat would be an amazing brain, an easy brain for somebody to play with AI. So if you just want
Oh
to,
yeah.
you're just getting started with AI, you could create a mock brain on national parks. Boom, you'll just get like all of them
Yeah.
magically.
Yeah.
So that if you're new to AI, you just want to experiment with like creating a national park brain, and you know that might be a good one to go ahead and get started with. All right. And then another question that popped up was about search, searching the contents of documents and searching through multiple brains. And then also, I think we should maybe just cover a little bit on instant activate. We're talking about mindset matters and ready for anything. And one of the cool things that obviously we've got the visual interface, you don't necessarily have to navigate or scroll to find things. Just type in your search, type in an idea, and the brain will immediately bring back that information. And that's really helpful. You know, somebody calls you, a client calls you, instant activate that client's name, and boom, mindset matters. You're in the zone.
Yeah.
You know, you are ready to start that meeting, activate the area of your research in your brain. And again, you're on track to improve the outcome of that meeting. So I guess with that, Matt, if you want to give us do the instant activate and then the deep search, and then
Sure.
somebody also asked about searching within their
Between
multiple
brains,
brains.
yes. And
So there's
that,
many
yeah.
levels of search in the brain. So I'll let Matt. I'll
Sure.
pass it over to Matt to go ahead and show
Sure.
you.
It's important to point out that, again, I'm running the Brain 14, so you're
Mhm.
going to see some really great features for search capabilities. In the Brain 13, when I did a search in the brain, it's just searching for through that existing brain that you have open. So do I have
And
anything
that's
in this?
okay too,
Yeah,
because
of
we'll still
course.
search through all the files
Oh,
and
yes.
content in addition to thoughts. So it's a
Yeah.
very powerful index. And then we take it a step further with 14 beta and let you search all of your brains.
Yes.
So
So I am in the Brain 14. So the Brain 14 has cross brain searching. So as you can see, notes and attachments in this brain that I have open right now, there's just 6 attachments, some PDFs, and a couple of notes where I have, and you can see I can hover over that. And the word medicine is appearing in that note. So all of your thought names are being indexed, all of your notes and your file attachments, Excel spreadsheets, PDFs, Word documents, and so forth. In the Brain 14, you're also seeing wherever that query, that search query, is appearing in other brains. And so you can see I do a search for the word medicine. I have 317 matches. This is a sample brain. I don't think I have 317 thoughts in this brain, but in all my brains, and of course, like I said earlier, I keep everything in my brain. So I'm keeping track of my own health and interests. And I have, medications my kids do and so forth. So, all that documentation goes into my brain. Wherever the word medicine appears, you can see I've got a thought or the file attachment. I'm scrolling through this really quickly because I'm not sure what kind of
and of
sensitive
course, you can
information it
click on
has.
that file
Yeah.
attachment and open it, and it will highlight in the notes as
Yeah.
well
Look at
where
this.
that
Yeah.
mention is.
My brain on Shakespeare in Othello. Apparently, the text of Othello has the word medicine. So I go directly to that thought. And then in the note, if I want to hit Control F and go directly to medicine. So in just in
There
a
he
few
is.
seconds,
Somebody was
that
like, I need, does your search highlight my, and I'm like, yeah, we've got highlighting. Of course we do. There's the highlighting. So
there it
anyway,
is. Yeah, absolutely. So within a few seconds, I did a search in my pharmaceutical brain for the word medicine. Now suddenly I'm on the script of Othello, where where the word medicine appears as well. So that's cross brain searching in version 14. Just a wonderful, great
Cross,
new
but the
feature.
highlighting will occur in 13 as
Yes, yes, it
well,
certainly will.
indexing and
Absolutely.
documents. So we love
Yeah,
14 beta, but 13 also has amazing indexing capabilities. Use the beta if you can, but if you can't, enjoy our full
yeah.
indexing in 13 as well. And Scott had a question
Mhm.
about, do we, you and I, Matt, ever use outline or mind map view? What situations? I did quickly chat in. I love outline view in particular for people maps, as
Mhm.
well as my overview of kind of getting things done and goals. So real quick, and thanks for the question, Scott. Maybe we can just cover outline view, mind map view. I actually had distant thoughts turned on.
I saw that.
And then
Yeah.
on the flip side of that, where we differ from a mind map is you can get that dynamic reconfiguration to hone in on concentrating for the zone, because we're talking about mindset matters. But let's go and show us a little love for outline and mind map view. And I think with that,
Absolutely.
we're going to have to, I'll scroll real quick. Or if anyone has any more questions we haven't got to, I'll look, but I think we're going to have to end the session pretty
Yeah, you may
soon.
have noticed that Shelley's brain, she had on the technical term for this is normal plus one. So you're in the normal view plus one generation away
That's
from
right. I'm
there. So
calling those
it's
the distant thoughts, but you're
yes.
right. I stand corrected. I'm old school. It's normal plus one, not
Normal
distant
plus
thoughts,
one,
even though
and
they
then
are
we
the
can go
distant thoughts.
into, yep, outline view. So outline view, a little bit more of a linear structure, but the benefit of seeing your data in outline view is, I want to review all my medications. I'm in a team meeting and I want to talk about everything, get it all out there on the table. So let's hover over a thought and hit the plus sign. What's going on with this? Hover over the plus sign and so forth. So I'm getting the big picture, and I can even continue drilling down multiple generations away from each individual thought and get sort of the highlight of what your brain is looking like. That is the outline view. The mind map view, I'm going to minimize my notes. So I'll use the buttons over here to minimize my notes and go full screen with the Plex. And I'm going to make my font just a little bit smaller. And I'm going to switch into mind map view. And mind map view, I'll hit the plus sign to expand everything one more generation out or collapse. I'm not deleting anything. It's just what is being viewed in the structure of the Plex, but I can slowly expand, expand again, expand again. And it's really just a great way of getting a high level overview of, all the thoughts in a brain, a project that you're working
Nice.
on, or just a brain in general. Put this up on a projector for your next meeting of the overview of a customer you're working with or whatever. It becomes a really, really impressive display, and helps you to sit back and look at how everything is structured. And of course, we're broadcasting today at a fairly low resolution just so that everything keeps up in time. If you've got a large 4K monitor, and this, to answer the original question, does Shelly Matt ever use it? Oh yeah, I go into mind map view for a project I'm working on. Is there anything that I missed? Is there anything that I haven't reviewed lately under this branch or this area of my brain? And I can sit back and take a closer look at that, and just sort of better educate myself, elevate myself on a particular project with these expanded views. And at any time, come right back to normal view again. There we
Yeah,
are.
and the nice thing about it is the combination of note taking to get your ideas in that standard form, the visualization combined with the powerful search. So you've got multiple modalities to
Mhm.
really look at your information, understand your goals, and really triangulate on your intentions. And I think with that, unless you saw anything else, Matt or Juan, that we need to get to, I want to be mindful of everyone's time because we've gone well into overtime with this webinar, but a lot of great questions. We love this topic. Such a great application of the brain. So, but I think we are going to end the session unless was there anything else, Matt or Juan, that we needed to cover
I think we definitely
from
covered
Q&A?
everything we, yeah,
Yes,
wanted to
I
to
think
take a
so
look
too.
at. And I'll remind everyone that Juan actually will be holding tomorrow's Brain 101 call. So if you're new to the brain and you're seeing all of this for the first time, I strongly encourage you to join the Brain 101. We have them every Friday, and it's a really great way to see how quickly and easily you can get started using the brain, creating thoughts, adding file attachments, notes, content, and syncing to the cloud. All the basic features you need to know to continue building and creating your own second brain.
All right. Well, I think with that, we're going to end today's session. And I hope we've given you some ideas and got your creative juices flowing for creating your own goal-directed information strategies. And I think the main message here is to let the brain and your wet brain, your second digital brain, control the flow of information and goals rather than them controlling you. And we wish you well, and we hope to see you on our next Brain Technologies webinar. And thanks for joining us today.